run and grab your tools and then put the giant hammer and saw down, because it is time to get mini. Now, two of the most common problems with flute are loose springs and loose screws. So you're going to need a spring hook and a small flathead screwdriver. Now, if you don't have a spring hook, you technically don't need one to do this, but it makes life a lot easier if you have one. And if you don't have one and you want one, I will put a link to one in the description below. Or you can get what I like, and this is called a fix-it tool, which is both a spring hook and a screwdriver all in one. One of the most common flute repair problems that you can have is when a spring comes out of its little hook. A spring is just a wire that comes behind the keys, and you can see one here or here. And basically, springs are just to keep the keys that are naturally open, and the keys that are naturally closed. And so you can see right here, this one has actually come out of its little hook, because if you look at this key, I try to press it and nothing happens, it stays down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my spring hook and I'm going to push it back into its little slot, and there you go. You see? Now it's staying up. Now you can try to do this with a pen or with your finger, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So I would definitely recommend using a spring hook if you could. Now for the next two most common problems on flute, you're going to need your little flathead screwdriver. So you will notice that there are these rods on the flute that go all the way across like that, right? And at the ends of each of these rods, you will notice that there are screws, right? You see a screw here, there's one there. And then you'll notice so that this one is sticking out just a little bit from where it's supposed to be. It's just come a little bit loose. So I am just going to get my screwdriver. I am going to tighten it. Tightening. And voila. There you go. Right, so now it's back in where it's supposed to be. Now after you tighten the screw, you want to make sure that all of the keys still fall freely. If they do not, then that means one of the keys is binding. And then you will have to loosen the screw just a little bit until the key falls freely again. And the reason that happens is because that means your screw is not 100% accurately fitted into the rod like it's supposed to be. And that's not something that you can fix yourself. You'll have to get a repair technician to look at that. But if you loosen it a little bit, it will free up the key. It's just as you continue to blow air through your flute will vibrate and the screw will start to become unscrewed again, and it'll start to come out. So you'll just have to keep an eye on it and just keep tightening it again as much as you can before the key binds. And you'll have to do this until you get your flute fixed. Okay, now the other thing that you can do with your screwdriver is to adjust the keys when one dependent key does not close at the same time as an independent key. So an independent key is a key where you put your finger down. So for example, I normally put my finger down on the A key, right? So that's an independent key. But you'll notice at the same time that the B flat key goes down with it. That's a dependent key. Now ideally, they would go down together, close together, right? Because if one is open, then it's going to be a little leaky, and you have to press the keys very hard to get them to close usually, and you don't want to have to play like that, and it's just makes a very kind of airy kind of sound. Okay, so what you do right now, it's fine, but for example, let's say if I was to loosen this. All right, now if I'm to loosen this, you'll see that my A key just got down before my B flat key. This is now what's called being under adjusted. That means that the independent key is closing before the dependent key. So if this is what your flute looks like, I did this on purpose, but if your flute just does this just because of just playing your flute for a while and wear and whatnot, then what you do is you just get your screwdriver and you are going to turn a little bit to the right. Righty-tighty. Let's see if that fixes it. Nope, not quite. Almost, though. It's better. So just a little bit more. Almost. That's pretty close for our purposes for today. Yes, and I have these screws here on the tops of the keys, but sometimes these screws go behind the keys. Sometimes they try to hide them. Sometimes some flutes don't have these at all. And that's because like most like professional flutes have some things called like shims that they use. But if you have a student or an intermediate level flute, then you'll have these. If you have a problem with adjustments with professional flutes, you just need to get it fixed. But this you can actually do yourself. And so anyway, if you are under adjusted, you go tighter. If you are over adjusted, which means, let me go too tight here. Now you'll see, well, it's not very obvious. Let me do a little more. Yeah, so you see how that the one on the left is still a little bit open when the one on the right is closed? Okay, so that means the independent key is closing after the dependent key. So it is over adjusted, so I am just going to loosen it just a little bit. And there we go. And there you have it. So now you have your 3 most common repair tips using your spring hook and your screwdriver.